All right, good morning, committee. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first item on the agenda, do we have any bill introductions this morning? Representative Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to introduce 23 RS 1008. This would move employees of Kansas Department of Corrections and Wildlife and Parks from KPERS to KPNF.
All right, committee, is there a motion to accept the bill introductions? Motion made by Representative Ballard. Is there a second? Second by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is introduced. Any further bill introductions this morning? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and get caught up on the budget, so we had to pass over yesterday. So we're going to start with Chairman Hoffman from the General Government Budget, and he is going to start with the Board of Examiners in Optometry. And actually, he's going to start with the Kansas Public Employees Retirement System.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Stephen needs to get upstairs, so, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make a quick announcement. You should have had the printouts on each of the budgets that Chairman Hoffman is going to be going over yesterday. But from now on, you'll need to refer to your budget books that were distributed out to the committee members, because the printouts will not be printed out any further, since we do have the budget books that are printed out. All right, thank you, and Chairman Hoffman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll go to Volume 1, page 387 is KPERS system. KPERS submitted a revised estimate of $63.9 million in fiscal year 2023, including $62.9 million from the Kansas Public Employees Retirement Fund. This represents a decrease of $4.4 million, or 6.4% below the amount approved by the 2022 legislature. And this amount is basically because of external investment management and consultant fees that are lowered due to them lowering their rate of return from 7.75% to 7%. So it's just simply a kind of an accounting issue that since they lower that rate, then those management fees are lowered also. It lowers those management fees from $38.4 million approved by the 2020 legislature to $33.9 million in fiscal year 23, representing a 0.143% of the total assets. They have 98 FTEs, which is the same as approved number. Government concurs with the agency's revised estimate and recommends $63.9 million in fiscal year 23, including $62.9 million from the Kansas Public Employees Retirement Fund. And the committee concurred with the governor.
Committee, any questions in regards to fiscal year 2023? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just not really a question on this, but it was my understanding that the consultant and management fees were really tied more to performance rather than expectations by the board. Was I mistaken in that?
Yeah.
Chairman Hoffman.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Evidently, I mean, that's what they said, was because of them lowering the amount from 7.75 to 7%, it was going to lower the management fees. So,
My own performance of the fund includes like projections into the future. So how much the budgeting is.
okay. So I guess sort of both ways, because it's based on performance. They are projecting the performance of the fund will be less, so thus the management fees will be less.
Okay, that works for me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, Chairman Hoffman, you may move on to 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency requests $65.9 million for 2024, including $64.9 million from the Kansas Public Employees Retirement Fund. This represents an increase of $2 million, or 3.2% above the 23 revised estimate. This is attributed to $1.4 million increase in expenditures from the retirement fund for external investment management and consultant fees. This request decreases management fees estimates from 33.9 to 35, or it increases actually. The request increases management fee estimates from $33.9 million in fiscal year 23 to $35.3 million in 24. They also had some other expenditures, including computer maintenance system agreement, repair on computers and related equipment. This is This increase is attributable to administrative expenses for the following programs: investments, deferred compensation, and death and disability. 98.4 FTEs, which is the same as the 23 revised estimate. The governor concurs with the agency's request, and we concurred with the governor's budget.
Any questions in regards to fiscal year 2024 for Capers? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The $332,000 for computer system maintenance, isn't their modernization program completed already, or is this the final leg of that?
Chairman Hoffman.
This is either the last year or the year before the last. I think they're in a 3-year, and is this the second?
No, so they're going through an RFP now.
Oh, it's going through the RFP.
Yep.
Okay, so it's going through the RFP, so actually they're just getting started with it. So, yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking
I'm
they're
misremembering
but this
entirely.
is the second year, I think, of it, but they're just now getting into the RFP of it.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on fiscal year 2024? Seeing none, Chairman Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the adoption of the 23 and 24 budgets for Capers.
All right, committee, for the motion, is there a second? Seconded by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, Chairman Hoffman, please indicate the next budget.
All right, Board of Examiners in Optometry, it's page 741 in the same volume. Their analysis starts on page 745. The agency submits a revised estimate of $202,514, all from special revenue funds and one FT position. It matches the amount approved by the 22 legislature. Governor concurred, the budget committee concurred.
Any discussion on fiscal year 2023? Seeing none, you may move on to 2024.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency requests $258,000, all from special revenue funds and one FT position for fiscal year 24. This is an increase primarily attributed to computer programming services totaling $5,579 and other miscellaneous adjustments totaling $165,000. The governor concurred. The budget concurred, except that we did add, we've been looking at a lot of the performance measures, and this one actually we put in, the committee recommends the agency review current performance measures and further recommends the agency develop more robust numerical and reportable goals. So that was something that we're actually seeing in a lot of them, but we put it in this one. And then also the computer programming this agency is one of them that has joined forces, I guess, with most of the fee-funded licensing agencies. They've gone together with OITS, and they're in the middle of a upgrade, I guess, that will be administered by OITS and will be able to have basically one licensing system throughout all of these different agencies.
Any discussion on fiscal year 2024? Seeing none, you may move on to 2025.
All right. The agency requests $246,824, all from special revenue funds and 2 FTE positions for fiscal year. Oh, I skipped 24, didn't I? Well, that was 24. Never mind. This is 25? Oh, sorry. Going too fast here. Agency request includes enhancement requests totaling $34,456, all from special revenue funds, and an additional 1 FTE position. The agency indicates the current executive officer will be retiring in fiscal year 25. The additional expenditure authorizes the FTE position, would allow new executive director to train the retiring, while the retiring executive officer is still there. The governor recommended expenditures totaling $212,000, all from special revenue funds, and 1 FTE position. She did not recommend the 1 FTE and the amount for that 1 FTE. We looked at it and talked to the agency for quite a little while, and we decided that we would add basically half of what they were asking for, $17,280, all from special revenue funds, and one FT position to allow the agency to hire a new executive officer to train alongside the current executive officer for 3 months prior to their current executive officer retiring in 2025. And then we also, same thing as far as more robust numerical and reportable goals. So after talking to the current executive director, she said that if she just had 3 months, as long as it was the right 3 months, which she can figure out, they can pretty well go through everything. She felt like that the new executive director needed to be able to just start and be pretty knowledgeable once she retires. So we thought that was a pretty good compromise, and that's what we did.
Any questions in regards to fiscal year 2025? All right, seeing none, Chairman Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the adoption of the 2023, 2024, and 2025 of the Board of Examiners in Optometry budget.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, Chairman Hoffman, you may move on to the Kansas Dental Board.
All right, page 667, the same volume. We'll start, their analysis for 2023 starts on page 672. The agency submits a revised estimate of $425,688, all from the Dental Fee Board, and 3 FT positions. It's the same as approved for the 2023 by the 2022 Legislature. The agency increased contractual services by $1,432 and decreased salaries and wage expenditures by the same amount. The decrease in salaries and wages was due to lower than anticipated employer contributions for fringe benefits, and the increase in contractual services includes several different types of contractual services, including Office of Information Technology service expenditures and some rental charges. The governor concurred with the agency, and the Budget Committee concurred with the governor.
Committee, any discussion in regards to fiscal year 2023? Seeing none, you may move on to 2024.
Agency requests $560,000, all from the Dental Board Fee Fund, the expenditures, and 3 FT positions for fiscal year 24. It's an increase of $134,000, or 31% above. The increase is attributable to requests to upgrade the agency's licensing system. They indicate that the existing system is Microsoft Access and is no longer supported. Their agency request includes $130,000 to migrate the existing system to a cloud-based licensing vendor in addition to the system upgrade. The agency request includes increase in salaries and wage expenditures totaling $2,283, which is mostly group health insurance. There's other small adjustments also included. The governor concurred with the agency, and the committee concurred with the governor.
All right, committee, any discussion? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This cloud-based licensing vendor that they're going with, that is through OITS?
So this one's a little bit complicated because they actually are the ones that started the whole process. So they've actually are ahead of everybody else and started the process of looking into a new system. They are...
If they're on Microsoft Access, they're not ahead of everybody else.
Well, that's true. They're ahead of the other agencies, put it that way. But they're going forward, but they're working with OITS also. And so their anticipation is once OITS gets their system put together, they're going to move over to that system. So they're going forward with what they're doing now, but they're going to eventually end up with in the OITS licensing system, because they without doubt they feel like it's going to be less expensive than what they're doing.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion for 2024? All right, seeing none, Chairman Hoffman, and we move on to 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency requests $565,000, all from the Dental Fee Board, and 3 FTE positions. It's an increase of $5,000 above the 24 request. It's attributed to estimated costs for in-state travel, state building capital charge, paper and stationery, and employer contributions for fringe benefits. It also includes some other expenditures for the enhanced licensing system, which we talked about in 2024. The governor concurred with the agency request, and the budget committee concurred with the governor.
All right, committee, any questions in regards to fiscal year 2025? Seeing none, Chairman Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move the fiscal year 2023, 2024, and 2025 budgets for the Kansas Dental Board.
Committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you, Chairman Hoffman. We'll go ahead and move on to the budget reports from Chairman Anderson from the Transportation and Public Safety budget. And I believe you'll be starting with the Kansas Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training. Chairman Anderson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are on Volume 2, page 1437. I will start with fiscal year 2023. Kansas C Post, 1437. All right, starting with fiscal year 23, the agency requests revised expenditures of $974,702, all from special revenue funds, and 6 FTE positions in FY23. This is an increase of $64,282 above the FY23 amount. The increase includes a supplemental request of $40,000 to increase the capacity and security of the central registry database. The revised estimate also includes an increase of $22,000 in salaries and wages due to changes in employer contributions and fringe benefits and salary increases. There is also an increase of $10,800 in contractual services due to leasing an additional 847 square feet of office space. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate in FY23, and the budget committee concurred with the governor's recommendation. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions on 23.
Committee, are there any questions in regards to fiscal year 2023? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not seeing the math here. The agency estimate in the budget report, in the committee report, shows 874,000. The governor's rec is 974,000. When we get to the agency, is that just a typo on the column up here? What happened to this $100,000?
Chairman Anderson.
Yeah, that looks to be a typo because the governor concurred.
That was the part that was confusing me. The governor did not concur with the typo. That was strongly in opposition to the typo, apparently. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions for fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, Chairman Anderson, you may move on to 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For fiscal year 24, the agency requests $1.1 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures, and 6 FTE positions for FY24. This is an increase of $94,812 above FY23 revised estimate. The increase includes an enhancement request of $100,000 for physical security and safety measures at their Wichita headquarter location. The governor concurs with the agency's request, and the budget committee concurred with the governor's recommendation. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions on FY24.
All right, thank you. Committee, any questions in regards to 2024? Seeing none, you may make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee recommendations for C-Post budget for fiscal years 23 and 24.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Francis. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Chairman Anderson.
All right, moving to Kansas Sentencing Commission. That is Volume 2, page 1509. Starting with fiscal year 23, The agency submits a revised estimate of $12.8 million, including $12.6 million SGF and 15 FTE positions in FY23. This is an increase of $13,228 above the FY23 approved amount. The increase is mainly in capital outlay for an upgrade of the research division's statistical modeling software and other assistance with the 2003 SB 123 drug treatment program. The governor recommends a revised FY23 budget of $12.7 million, including $12.6 million SGF. This is a decrease of $24,518 SGF below the agency's FY23 revised estimate. The decrease is due to a reduction in funding for salaries and wages, and the Budget Committee concurred with the governor's recommendation. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions on 23.
All right, committee, are there any questions? Representative Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions, Chairman Anderson. First of all, is this the first budget where we've seen a decrease due to a reduction in funding for salaries and wages?
Chairman Anderson.
It seems that way.
Okay. My follow-up question is, in the 2023 budget last year, we approved a pay increase for their staff, but then also for Scott Schultz, the director himself. That was ultimately not granted to him by the governor's office. Do you know if that was ever resolved and he received that? Because it was a legislative directive that he get that, but as I understand, the governor's office did not allow that pay increase to occur.
Representative Owens, you are correct. That did not occur, and it has not been resolved. Chairman Anderson?
The governor did approve an increase this year in January for his salary increase.
Yeah.
Representative Owens?
Did that make up for the 6 months of the legislative directive that he didn't receive? Or did it just start in January?
Chairman Anderson?
I didn't know that it was approved either. I'm just trusting.
Yeah, the increase was on January 22nd. It was more than the 5%, but I don't know. I can't speak to if it made up for it.
Representative Owens?
All right. Maybe staff could look into it or something. What I want to make sure is I want to ensure that he was made whole with our legislative directive from last year, and that pay increase occurred. I don't know if it was 5% or if it was something different. I'd have to look back, and so I don't know if maybe I can bring that up at a later point. I hate to make a motion at this point, not having specific numbers, but I want to ensure by the time we're done that he is made whole from what he was approved to receive in the new fiscal year.
Chairman Anderson?
Yep, staff will figure that out after the committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Representative Ballard?
Thank you. I recall that too, but I also have a question. So this person would have received an increase of which we don't know the amount right now, in addition to the 5% that actually came in. So actually it could be anywhere from 10% to 12% to whatever. Is that what we're really saying?
Well, I think that's what staff is going to be looking at, because when I was having conversations about this particular issue with the governor's office, he was subject to the 5% pay increase that was authorized by the legislature, but not to, as what Representative Owens had indicated, to the directive that we had in the budget bill, which was approved by the board, to have a much higher pay increase beyond the 5% pay adjustment that was made last year. So I think in response to Representative Owens' question, staff is going to be generating the numbers with the 5% increase that he was subject to, but what we had decided legislatively and what the board had decided, and how do we make that up with the 6 months that we're currently in fiscal year 2023, as Representative Owens said, to make it whole what we actually intended in the legislative process with the budget.
Got it. Just wanted to understand it. Thank you.
Chairman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do have some numbers here. So he was at about 100,000. He got the 5% increase to 105,811. And then the governor approved up to 115,000. And that was his latest raise.
Representative Owens, did you have a follow-up?
Does staff happen to have the number that we actually approved? Because it sounds like the governor just kind of chose to do what she wanted to do there. And so do we know what we actually approved in the 2023 budget for his raise?
Chairman Anderson.
The 5% was what was approved.
Which was the across-the-board pay increase when the budget bill was signed in July, or it actually took effect in July of 2022.
It seems like that there was more than that. We've got to work on that discrepancy because I think that there was a different number in there, and we'll work on that. Thank you.
And I contend to agree with Representative Owens. Representative Francis.
Yeah, if I remember the specifics on that, we asked that they had a salary study done, and then that's where the number for Mr. Schultz's salary increase came. The confusion came, I think, when we made the motion. It was something along the lines of that salary increase being made, but she had, in her governor's recommendation, excluded him from the deal, and then somehow when the proviso got ran through, they interpreted it that he was not to be included in it because she had excluded him in her earlier approval of that. Does that make any sense, what I'm trying to say? There was a salary study. We approved the salary study. She had priorly excluded him from the raise and only wanted to give him the 5%, and then she did it in the process. I don't remember what the amount that it was in the study. For some reason, well, I won't even say what I think the amount was, but it wasn't 115, what I remember.
Well, and as we discussed before, and as the question was generated by Representative Owens, we'll get staff to get that number. Any further questions in regards to fiscal year 2023? All right, Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For fiscal year 24, the agency requests $10.2 million, all from SGF, and 15 FTE positions for FY24. This is a decrease of $2.5 million below the FY23 revised estimate. The decrease is mainly due to a decrease of $2.6 million in other assistance, which is the amount of the reappropriation from FY 2022, which was added to the 2003 SB 123 drug treatment program in FY23 and does not continue into 24. The governor recommends $10.2 million, all SGF, for FY24. This is a decrease of $24,518 SGF below the agency's FY24 request. The decrease is once again due to a reduction in funding for salaries and wages, and the Budget Committee concurred with the governor's recommendation for FY24. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions on FY24 budget.
Committee, any questions in regards to fiscal year 2024? All right. Seeing none, Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee recommendations for the Kansas Sentencing Commission budget for fiscal years 23 and 24.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Oh, is there a second? Sorry, is there a second? Second by Representative Owens. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. I'm going to be the individual in the hot seat now when I do the legislative budget committees. On your agenda, we're going to be jumping around, but in your packet, it should be in order. So we're going to be starting with the Office of the Reviser of Statutes. So the Revisor's Office submitted a fiscal year 2023 revised estimate of approximately $4.4 million, all state general fund. This is a decrease of approximately $431,000 from the approved amount, and that is attributable to lapsing of some state general fund reappropriations from fiscal year 2022. The revised estimate includes 33.5 FTE positions, which is the same number that was approved in the budget of 2022. The governor concurred with the agency's revised estimate, and the budget committee concurred with the agency and the governor as well. Any questions in regards to the revisor's office in regards to fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to fiscal year 2024. The agency has requested $4.5 million, all from state general fund. This is an increase of approximately $24,000. The increase is attributable to changes in the employer contributions for health insurance and offset by a reduction in the employer contributions from the public employees retirement system. The revisor's office includes 33.5 FTE positions, which was the same amount that was approved in the budget of fiscal year 2022 and also in 2023. The governor concurred with the revisor's office request for fiscal year 2024, and as did the budget committee. Any questions in regards to the Office of the Revisor of Statutes for 23 or 24? Seeing none, I would go ahead and move the budget for the revisor's office, seconded by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We will go ahead and move on to the Legislative Research Department. The Research Department submitted a fiscal year 2023 revised budget of $5.1 million, all from State General Fund. This is a decrease of approximately $237,000, and that is attributable to elapsing a portion of the reapportionment from State General Fund from fiscal year 2022. The majority of the fiscal year 2023 expenditures for the Research Department is in salaries and wages, with 41 FTE positions, which is the same number that was approved in the budget in the legislative session of 2022. The governor concurred with the Research Department's revised estimate for 2023, as did the Budget Committee. Is there any questions in regards to 2023? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to 2024 for Legislative Research Department, which requests about $5 million all SGF for fiscal year 2024. This is a decrease of approximately $89,000, and that is due to a lack of reappropriated funds and the completion of the current redistricting cycle, which we are done with that. The agency request also includes 41 FTE positions, and that is the same number that was approved in fiscal year 2023. The governor concurred with the agency's request for 2024, as did the Budget Committee. The one thing that I will say, we had a lengthy conversation, and this goes to the revisor's office and also the Research Department. We had a discussion in regards to the vacancies in both of those areas, workload, and what we can do to try to incentivize the staff for the research and the revisor's office, because I think everybody knows we rely heavily on these two departments. And one thing that we did discuss is, especially in appropriations and ways and means, we're in a conference committee and we go late into the night, and then we get done about 10 p.m. and then it's asked by the revisor's office and the research department to work all through the night to craft and draft the budget bill. And so one thing is that we're trying to be cognizant of the fact and adhering to the staff's concerns and maybe not doing that because it weighs pretty heavily on our staff. So we did have a lengthy conversation. Obviously, the speaker is a member of the Legislative Budget Committee, and he had questions as well in regards to how we can address some of the staffing issues. So I just wanted to make that point. We didn't have an amendment or any changes to the budget, but I just wanted to let all of you know that we did have that discussion. Any further questions in regards to the Legislative Research Department for fiscal year 2024? All right, seeing none, I would make a motion to approve the budget for the Legislative Research Department for fiscal year 2023 and 2024, seconded by Representative Hoffman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Legislature. The Legislature submitted a revised estimate of $30.4 million, all State General Fund, and 56 FTE positions. This is a decrease of $3.5 million below the approved amount, and this is attributable to lapsing a portion of the State General Fund reapportionment from fiscal year 2022 to 2023. The governor concurred with the legislature's revised estimate for fiscal year 2023, and the Budget Committee concurred with the governor's recommendation. Is there any questions in regards to fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and move on to fiscal year 2024. The legislature requests $25.6 million, all from State General Fund, and 56 FTE positions, which is the same as in fiscal year 2023. This is a decrease of $4.7 million below the fiscal year 2023 revised estimate, and that decrease is due to a lack of reappropriated funds, as well as reduction in the amount required for the Kansas Legislative Information System and Services, or also known as KLIS, modernization project. The agency requests, as I mentioned, 56 FTE positions, which is the same number as fiscal year 2023. The governor concurred with the legislature's agency's request, and the Budget Committee concurred with the governor. Is there any discussion in regards to legislature? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on this budget, does this also include all of our committee assistants and our personal assistant office staff?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And was there any discussion about the difficulty in hiring and maintaining staff and how we could better help us function and do our jobs?
There was no discussion in the legislature's budget. As I mentioned, we had that discussion with revisers and research, but we did not have that discussion in regards to committee assistance with the legislature.
And Mr. Chair, I know that in the past several years, it's been brought to our committee's attention that we would love to have, I don't know if it's the LCC or the State Finance Council, take a look at the disparities with some of the different committee assistant pay and maybe reevaluate how the different tiers are. I do know that they've done a great job, adjusting those tiers, and so it's worked out, but there is a disparity, and I really would like for us to take a current look at it.
And I know we had the discussion last year, and I believe 2 years prior, in regards to committee assistant pay. I would say if that's going to be challenged with any type of entity, it would be the Legislative Coordinating Council, because it is actually a legislative agenda item.
So is that request, would your staff be able to let me know a good time, a time in which I could make that request? Or I don't know what the best process is, but I don't want to go another year with this. It really impacts us. And it has, they know how difficult it has been. I've had 4 different assistants this year. Mine right now is part-time. And I'm very thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the support, but we've got to have some solutions.
And we could have that discussion today when we actually get to the budget on the Legislative Coordinating Council, or we can do that when we're actually crafting the budget back together in March. So it's up to your prerogative. Representative Landwehr.
I'm happy to wait.
Okay. Representative Landwehr.
Well, and that would be one path, Mr. Chairman. Another path may be for this committee here to send a letter to the LCC to ask them to take a look at that. Because this isn't a new issue from yesterday or the day before that. It goes back many, many years. And I think what we're seeing happening is the skill requirement is greater today than it's ever been. The load has gotten greater in some of these committees, and we don't give the proper training to any of these individuals before they walk into our offices, and it sets them up for failure. And some of these people, it's so frustrating for them, they're just done. So I would suggest that we send a letter asking that to be looked at from this committee.
And we can definitely do that. So we can have that be a portion of the LCC budget.
Okay.
And not necessarily doesn't fit with the legislature, but with the LCC's budget when we get to that. Any further comments in regards to fiscal year 2023? All right, I'll go ahead and move on to 2020. Actually, I was 24. Never mind. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the budget for the legislature on fiscal year 2023 and 2024, seconded by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, the next budget we have is the Legislative Division of Post Audit. The Legislative Division of Post Audit submits a fiscal year 2023 revised estimate of $3.6 million, all from State General Fund. This is a decrease of approximately $420,000, and the decrease is the lapsing of State General Fund reapportionment from fiscal year 2022, an additional approximate $12,000. The majority from fiscal year 2023 expenditures for this agency are in salaries and wages. They have 26 FTE positions, which is 1 position below the approved number. And the decrease is due to the correction of a technical error. Contractual services for fiscal year 2023 include $150,000 contingency for hiring outside contractors for both economic development tax incentive evaluation and contracted performance audits. The governor concurred with the Legislative Division of Post Audit for fiscal year 2023, as did the Budget Committee. Any questions in regards to fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, I'll move on. The Legislative Division of Post Audit requested $3.5 million, all from State General Fund for fiscal year 2024. This is a decrease of approximately $51,000, and the decrease is due to the reduction in the contingency for hired outside contractors for both economic development tax incentives evaluation and contractor performance audits, partially offset by increases in salaries and wages and fringe benefit expenditures. The agency also requests 26 FTE positions, which is the same number for fiscal year 2023. And one of the major contractual service expenditures is contracts for assistance with selected performance audits and evaluations of economic development tax incentives. The governor concurred with the Legislative Division of Post-Audit for fiscal year 2024, as did the Legislative Budget Committee. Any questions in regards to the Legislative Division of Post-Audit? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is just a comment for the committee. Just know that it's $3.5 million for 26 FTEs. So when we are passing legislation, just be cognizant of that. Oftentimes, we're increasing the number of audits inside legislation, which takes away from the ability of the committee to choose audits or for you to request audits. It's not that that's necessarily the wrong thing to do, but it does change the scope of what this committee can do, and it does have limited resources. So please just pay attention when we have bills that include an automatic audit. It does have an impact. Thank you.
Any further comments in regards to fiscal year 2024? All right, saying none, I would move the budget for the Legislative Division of Post-Audit for fiscal years 2023 and 2024, seconded by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The final budget is the Legislative Coordinating Council. The Legislative Coordinating Council submits a revised budget of approximately $784,000 and 8 FTE positions in fiscal year 2023. This is a decrease of almost $68,000 below the approved amount, and that is attributable to lapsing all of the state general fund reappropriations of fiscal year 2022 and a reduction in salaries and wages for the 8 FTE positions, which is the same number as the approved number. The governor concurred with the agency's fiscal year 2023 revised estimate, as did the budget committee. Any discussion? Representative Landwehr, did you want to make an amendment to have the letter added to the LCC?
Yes, and I think Dion's got the proper language that's needed for that, Mr. Chairman. So that would be my motion.
All right. Committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Williams. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Landwehr, you may close.
Close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Helgerson.
One of my pet peeves is not getting notices and agendas. And LCC, and we've had this discussion last year, will send out a notice that it has a meeting, but will not send the agenda out until the day of the meeting. And I would like to know what's coming up so I could at least participate or make a decision to listen in on the meetings. So I don't have anything written, but I would make a motion that prior to the LCC meeting, 3 days in advance, an agenda is sent out to all that request it. Now, it doesn't have to be everybody on the email, but I think that everybody should have an understanding of what the LCC is going to take as the topics so they can either listen in or participate in some way if that's necessary, if that's desired. So I'll make that conceptual motion if that's agreed to.
You can make a conceptual motion, yes.
Okay.
Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Carlin. Discussion on the motion. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do they always have 3 days? Sometimes it might be quicker turnaround, isn't it, from the time that they call a meeting to the meeting? I'm not sure.
Representative Helgerson.
I'm trying to think if I can remember if they've sent a notice out in one day. They have before. Okay. If the second is willing, I'll change that conceptual motion to 24 hours in advance.
And that seems to be okay with the second? Representative Carlin.
Yes, that's typical language in business of government, that you have 24 hours notification for counties, cities, and everything else. Thank you.
Just language.
Just language.
Just language.
That's
yeah. Representative Helgerson.
we're hearing that sometimes there's an emergency business. Look, I'm not trying to curtail the business of the state and the necessity for dealing with some issues, but it's gone on for several years where we don't get notified of the information, and I think that that's important. And it's usually, and not being on this, it's either the president or the speaker that's in charge of the committee, and they sometimes just flout the rules. And it doesn't have to be this year; it could have been several years ago. Let's just say, well, I'll withdraw the motion and I'll bring it up later on. But my intent is to make sure that they inform us of the actions they're taking, if at all possible, prior. And I'll withdraw the motion if the second is willing, and we'll bring it up some other time later on.
All right, the motion is withdrawn. All right, with the second? Appears to be. Representative Ballard.
I think my question has been answered because I wanted to talk about the emergency one, that we'd have to allow for that. The other thing is, we always get the agenda. I mean, we know what time, when they're going to meet, what hour in the agenda. So just so I'm clear about what you're asking, you're saying that we may get that, but you want to know what was decided at that meeting. Is that what you're asking?
Representative Helgerson.
We don't get the topics until they've been acted on.
I think his motion was prior to the meeting, not after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move for the Legislative Coordinating Council for fiscal year 2024, which they requested approximately $758,000. This is a decrease of $25,000, and that is a reduction in contractual services, partially offset by increases in salaries and wages, fringe benefit expenditures, and employer contributions to the group health insurance. They requested 8 FTE positions, which is the same number as in fiscal year 2023. The governor concurred with the Legislative Coordinating Council budget for fiscal year 2024, and the Budget Committee also concurred with the governor's recommendation for fiscal year 2024. Any discussion in regards to fiscal year 2024 for the LCC? Seeing none, I would move the budgets for fiscal year 2023 and 2024 for the Legislative Coordinating Council as amended. Seconded by Representative Hoffman. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to Chairman Corbett from the Agricultural and Natural Resources budget, and he is going to give us the budget for the Kansas Department of Commerce. Chairman Corbett.
Thank you, Chairman. FY23 agency request submits a revised FY23 estimate of $233.3 million, including $24.9 million SGF and 313 FTE positions. This is an all funds increase of $64 million, or 50.4% above the FY23 approved amount. The increase is primarily because an increase of $71.2 million in federal funds, which includes $45.4 million in federal American Rescue Plan Act funds and $21 million from the federal state small business credit initiative. The governor's recommendation concurs with the agency, and so did the committee.
All right, committee, are there any questions in regards to the Kansas Department of Commerce for fiscal year 2023? Representative Owens.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And maybe I just missed this as I was scrolling through something else, but the $100 million increase was all related to the ARPA funding and the distribution of the ARPA funding?
Chairman Corbett. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion in regards to fiscal year 2023? All right, seeing none, Chairman Corbett, you may move on to fiscal year 2024.
24. The agency requests $154.7 million, including $126.616 SGF and 322 FTE positions for 24. This is a decrease of $73.6 million, or 32.2%, including a decrease of 24.8 million SGF, or 99.5% below the FY23 revised estimate. The decrease is primarily due to the elimination of the federal state small business credit initiative of $21 million and the final payment of the investments in the mayor's projects and comprehensive training, impact bonds, and the reductions in the job credit creation program fund of $16.3 million. This is partially offset by 13 enhanced requests totaling $14 million and addition of 11 FTE positions. The governor recommends that FY24 expenditures of $178.3 million, including $26.4 million SGF and 319 FTE positions for 24. This is an increase of $23.7 million or 15%, including the increase of $26.3 million in SGF above the agency's 23 revised estimate. The increase is primarily due to expenditures of the Housing Revolving Loan Program of $20 million through the Kansas, through the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation, which in addition to the funding approved the rural housing last year, will be available to assist with the workforce house needs throughout the state for a APEX program of $6.3 million. The increase is partially offset by the governor's recommendation not to approve 5 of the agency's enhancements request of $3.6 million. The House Budget Committee's recommendations. The Budget Committee concurs with the governor's recommendations for 24 with the following adjustments. Delete $3 million, all EDF funds for the Returning Kansas home marketing campaign for 24. Delete $1 million from all EDIF for the Early Childhood Education and Care Initiative for 24. Delete 2 positions in the Research Division for FY24.
Committee, any questions in regards to fiscal year 2024? Representative Williams.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I may have missed it. So as I understand the increases in the all funds. We've got the ARPA, I've got that. But let's just take a look at the state general fund. And in 2022, we have 1.6 million, and then 2024, it's 26 million, and we're adding 11 FTEs. Is that correct?
Chairman Corbett.
That's the way it appears.
Okay, and I don't see, it may be in here, what are those different positions? What page would I find those on?
I'm sorry.
Chairman Corbett. Representative Williams.
What page are the positions found on?
Chairman Corbett.
Yep. Hang on.
I don't see it. Where is it?
500.
Right here.
501.
Oh,
I would say it appears in the budget book, it would be starting on about 498 and going to page 500. And it itemizes each position.
okay.
Or the cheat sheet.
So of those, if I'm looking at it and I see, for example, you have 2 research, 2 Salesforce data, how many of these would be attributable to Apex?
Chairman Corbett.
Just a minute. Representative, there'd be none.
None? So we're implementing a $1 billion program and there are no FTEs, but we can implement a sales tax of 47 million and we have 8 FTEs?
Different agency, but
I know, I know, different
think you're
agencies, but
theoretically
I just don't
talking
see
about
that that's
changes.
possible.
Is that actually a question directed to Chairman Corbett?
Yeah, I
Chairman
just want to be
Corbett.
sure that we're getting,
Representative, it's not the 11 million on that.
11 positions.
11 positions for the Apex, right? Correct.
Could you restate that, Chairman Corbett?
It wasn't the 11 FTEs for the Apex. The 11 FTEs were not in the Apex. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Representative Williams.
Okay, I see that there's one position attributable to Apex on page 494. Are there any others?
That was not recommended by the governor.
Okay, so I guess maybe did they give you?
This is where it was pulled back out by the governor. And then
498 actually has a list of the positions that the agency requested and what the governor recommended. Representative Williams.
Okay, I guess, well, maybe it'd be just easier if you could just provide an overview, a quick summary of why we went from 1.9 million to 26 million from 2022 to 2024 for SGF. If we just had less than 11, we have 8, looks like, SGF. So what's causing the big increase?
Well, I would say
Housing, okay, it's the loan
the
program.
housing, the
Okay.
housing program.
Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Landwehr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm struggling just a little bit with the agency request versus the governor's recommendation. What didn't the agency know before they submitted their request? And that what did the governor know that came in with a $26.4 million bump?
Chairman Corbett. Representative Carlin.
One of the things that you're looking at there is the 6.3 million for Apex, which was provided for in the legislation for Apex, but the dollar amount was not known at the time of year when we voted on Apex. So 6.3 million is for that of the 26.4 you're talking about. There was a housing for 20 million.
Yes, 20 million.
How much of housing was SGF? 20 million. 20 million. For the rural housing initiative was $20 million.
Representative Landwehr.
The 20 was what?
Rural housing, let me find.
Mike, please.
Microphone.
You're on.
I'm sorry, I wait for your call. I
Representative
apologize. The revolving loan program for housing.
Representative Landwehr.
Okay, I guess I still kind of struggle with this here, but if we are willing to accept these two numbers here, then why isn't this ARPA funds and not instead of SGF?
Chairman Corbett.
Louder.
The legislature.
So this was the governor's recommendation. If the legislature wants to change it, they can.
Well, and actually, you cannot use ARPA funds in housing or for a revolving loan program. That's specifically stated with the federal government.
Arthur and Spark is two different pots.
Representative Owens. Oh, I'll go back. Representative Owens.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were kind of done with that conversation first. So talk to me a little bit about this new international division. And I want to preface this by saying I think our Department of Commerce has really done a great job over the last 4 years. I mean, honestly, they have implemented some programs, they have recruited some business, they've done some really, really good things, and I'm really thankful for the work that they have done. I'm a bit concerned with spending $1.2 million and adding 3 new FTE positions to travel internationally and recruit businesses. Can you dive into maybe how those conversations went a little bit more in the Budget Committee for me?
Chairman Corbett.
An individual. Grain and-
It's a good question. I don't know. If we'd had probably more time, we might have had a chance to make another recommendation, maybe to remove that. But we just didn't get that far. That's just what it is. I think it's going to be contract. I think the Department of Commerce is just going to contract with somebody over there to promote Kansas or Commerce, I believe. I'm just telling you what I was told. So it's.
If I recall, when we had a discussion about this earlier in the session, it was for 3 positions. I believe 2 were going to be located in Japan, and 1 was going to be a contractor in Europe, is where they were looking at focusing. Representative Owens.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we eliminate that enhancement request, the 3 FTEs and the $1.2 million for the international division.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Seconded by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the motion. Representative Alcala.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know what the hell that was. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when I first seen this, I had some concerns about it also. And thank you. We visited with staff from Department of Commerce. And so I will not support the motion only because I want to roll the dice and take a chance of maybe pulling in some more businesses from overseas. You're exactly right. It was going to be, we were going to have 2 people over there, 1 back here in the United States. I think presently there's only like 2, I can't remember, 2 or 3 people work in this international division. And so if we don't invest and take the risk and try to see what we can't contract to bring back or business we can't bring back, it's hard to do everything domestically and then make travels and not make those connections, especially in like Japan, where it's more of a personal type of business atmosphere is what I think. I'm willing to not support this. I'm willing to leave those positions in there and hoping that we can get something for our money, a return back on our money. It is risque and it is a chance. I don't disagree with anyone, but I'm willing to take that one.
Chairman Corbett.
I agree with the motion a little bit, but I think that if you wanted to spend the money, I think I'd put that in tourism for Candace and let them worry about that and spread the word if you want to spend the money. If you want to just cut the money, I'm good with the motion, but that's just another thought where you might get more bang for your buck.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a little concern because I think can we say names here? The representative had motioned that over the last 4 years, one has been pleased with the progress that we've made in that area. I guess I don't feel that we got an adequate explanation for the enhancement request. What did that entail? I'm looking at this, so therefore it's $200 in travel, so that means that it's a little over $800,000 to set up an office, to operating expenses, and to do what we say we want Commerce to do, and that's to bring more businesses to Kansas. I will vote no on it, not because I don't understand what the issue is, but because I think we need more information in terms of what this really does and what we know those 2 positions will do. Just establishing an office in Japan in itself is going to take people going back and forth and finding the facility for that. So I don't know when removing it says it's totally gone and we can't visit it again, but I'm not sure we have all of the information we need about what we're trying to establish here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like some more information as well. But what I do know is that there is direct foreign investment in the state of Kansas by Kubota in my district. They've repurposed the former Phillips Lighting plant into a new manufacturing line in partnership with Great Plains Manufacturing. So there's quite a bit of foreign investment coming to Kansas. I would hate for us to lose more opportunities with the lack of information and making an informed decision. In addition to that, Schwann's, its parent company is a South Korean company, and they've had a large foreign investment, direct foreign investment in the state of Kansas as well. Kansas Department of Commerce have worked on both projects, and Japan is a key trading partner. They rely on us for a lot of agricultural commodities as well. They don't have enough workers to manufacture what they need domestically. We have a good demographic here to do that. And so I think there's opportunities. In addition to that, Japan is the largest holder of U.S. foreign debt. It's not China, it's Japan. So I think these things are a little bit more nuanced than we realize. So I do think more information would be good. I think it would be good for the House to have a position to keep this in, and perhaps we can learn more before a conference committee. As I understand it, the Senate has removed this enhancement request, but perhaps we keep it in and then learn more along the way, and perhaps it could be worked out in conference. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, my suggestion would be to review it at omnibus and not in conference. Representative Owens?
Yeah, I don't have a problem modifying it to delete it and then to review it at omnibus, because I do understand, it feels like we need more information. But I do want to be clear about something. It's so easy when we're looking at such a snippet in time, when you look at this budget analysis for 22, projected for 23, or approved, and then 24. But you don't have to go back very far to see just how much we've increased the budget of the Kansas Department of Commerce already. And I stand by this, and I say this with nearly every state agency, right? Every state agency does some good on some level for someone. Every one of them do. But we have got to be the ones to slow the roll sometimes and say, look, we realize it's going to do good. We realize they do good work, but they had a $116 million budget in 2020. And here we are, approving it to $154 million upwards of in 24. It's like, where's that balance? And it's always a challenging balance that we have. It's our responsibility to do so. So with that, if the second is good with adding that review at omnibus, I will close on that motion.
Is that good with the second? All right, so we're back on the modified motion. Representative Helgerson.
I appreciate the change of the motion. With my bad knee, I didn't want to get out of the Capitol yesterday, and I wandered into Rural Caucus. Rural Caucus talks about a great industry that we have that is the desire of every other state around us, and that is our farming industry goes to everywhere in the world to sell its products. It is our #1 industry. And I am sensitive to the Department of Commerce and the growth in their budget. And I'm also as critical as almost anybody about the Department of Commerce. But let me tell you a few facts. We used to have trade missions with the Department of Commerce that went overseas, and they were in the 1990s, as I remember. And we cut them out because of the financial crisis that we had in the 2000s. We cut back our Department of Commerce, and we saw our economy stop its growth, not only in airplanes, but also in agriculture. I see the growth just like my colleague here to my side, and I don't like to see the staffing increase. But the only thing that tells me that there should be a change is the economy growing or is it not? And that is the bottom line. And even though I still question Apex, and I still haven't seen the stuff that's come from Wichita, we have seen examples in Kansas City, Salina, Topeka, Wichita, Western Kansas that shows that the Department of Commerce has made a difference in our economy. You know, the $3 or $4 or $5 million that we spend in extra money to promote Kansas is what's necessary, and that's a peanuts compared to what the private industry. You know, you go down to Wichita and you look at what the aircraft industry spends in trying to sell an airplane. You know, they could fund our whole department on what they spend. I appreciate the motion. I am concerned that, yeah, we'll put it off, and you'll hear the speech a second time, because the Department of Commerce is what's going to grow the state. And it will not only grow it in northeast Kansas, it'll grow it in Wichita, it'll grow it in western Kansas, and that's what's necessary. So I'm adamant that we need to have the economic analysis that will prove that this will work, but I don't think it's necessary to take it out at this time.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the questioning and the concern. I had the same lines of concern, but I did have a conversation with the Department of Commerce, and I think it's a good thing to have people in Japan. Japan, their business relationships are very personal, and most of the suppliers and even materials that we're going to be needing for our new partner here in Kansas, Panasonic, we're going to need to develop those business relationships and hopefully get more suppliers to move here for that. I couldn't agree with Representative Slina or the one that just spoke anymore, and so they talked about most things I wanted to, but the business relationships are highly personal in Japan, and I think it would behoove us to have somebody there. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that would have been a great explanation had we had that from the get-go. We wouldn't even be discussing that. And we didn't know on this enhancement, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't talk about export, it doesn't talk about trade, it doesn't talk about business recruitment or suppliers. That would be really good good information if we have that. Again, coming back to the FTEs, if we're going to increase FTEs, we should have performance measures with those FTEs so we know how many contacts, and eventually we'll be able to see the result of it. And my only other question is, it sounds like this is related to the Apex, but if it were related to, for example, farm and that industry, then what does the Department of Ag do in relationship to this? So there's just unanswered questions on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you for the second time, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. That was my point for saying we did not get a full explanation. We did not know what it is. And, and I think the representative pointed out, how do you think we got Panasonic? I mean, there were lots of things around this situation. But just because we don't have all the information, we were asking for it, but I think we can ask for it further, get a better explanation, and then look at it in terms of, okay, is it beneficial to the state? I personally think it is, because that's what I have heard for years. We need more business coming in here, and somebody's going to suffer if we don't continue to do this. So for that reason, I have to be opposed to it, because it is going to stifle growth, and we want growth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday when I learned what the Senate had done, I did have some time with the department as well. And digging back through my materials to see what I had already been presented on January 24th, I believe they were here in Budget Committee for this presentation. It was our Budget Committee. But we have a document that discussed that. A nice paragraph that explained the things that Representative Tarwater just said, and some of the things that Representative Howe said about the International Division. And so it has been presented to the Budget Committee. I thought it was presented in here when they discussed earlier, what they're doing. And one of the really reasons for Japan, well, one, we just did $5 million or $5 billion wheat deal this summer with Japan. And also, the Panasonic plant will include other companies coming and looking at Kansas to support Panasonic. It's in the material. The department has tried very hard to give us all these answers. We have a lot to study, and we sometimes care about our own committees and don't review everybody else's as much. But I just wanted to say I appreciate the support from the representatives that have looked into these things. Thank you very much.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. I think it'd be for Dylan. So the three FTEs, I think someone said that they thought these would be these would be people that were contracted in Japan. If they're contracted, then there wouldn't be FTE count, right? Because if they're saying they want 3 FTEs, that's people that are getting benefits and everything.
Dylan.
Mr. Chairman, so contracted employees are not included in FTE counts, although I don't know in this particular case if these 3 are all contracted. I don't have that information. I would defer to our analyst on that one.
Okay, but so my point was if they really are contracted, they're not getting benefits and all that. They're not FTEs. So it kind of makes me think that they don't necessarily need the 3 FTEs to do what they're wanting to do.
Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I understand from the description that part of this money would establish a European office? Did I understand that correctly?
Japan office.
Chairman Corbett. That was mentioned before.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Representative Mason, they're going to partner with a lot of other nations. The goal would be to partner, not establish offices, with other partners in Europe and wherever.
Representative Mason.
I kind of think the Department of Commerce is overlooking one of our major trading partners consistently year after year, and that would be Taiwan. And they are one of our biggest trading partners, both export and import. In my conversations with the diplomats from the Denver office, they are telling me that they have all sorts of opportunities that they could fill in the DeSoto area surrounding the DeSoto plant, or the Panasonic plant, and I think we're overlooking that. I would make a motion that this committee instruct the Department of Commerce to establish a Taiwanese office as well and split that money between Japan and Taiwan.
Is that a substitute motion?
Yes.
All right, is there a second for the substitute motion? Second by Representative Estes. Okay, we're on the substitute motion. Discussion on the substitute motion. Representative Estes.
So I've also had the opportunity to visit with some of the representatives of Taiwan, and they are very anxious to be a trading partner with us. And in other travel capacities that I have, I feel like having an impact in Europe is pretty difficult because everybody's there. And I like switching it over to Taiwan because we could really get a lot of bang for our buck that way.
So just to clarify your motion, your substitute motion, Representative Mason, this is to fund the International Trade Division on the amount that was requested by the Department of Commerce, but to have it be strictly between Japan and Taiwan.
You are correct, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Just wanted to have that clarification for the committee. Any further discussion on the substitute motion? Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to belabor the fact, but let's go ahead and do that. I appreciate the motion, and I think what gets lost in all this conversation. I appreciate the original maker of the motion. International trade is something that sometimes we don't fully understand, and not see people understand it, but it's a complicated issue. The world continues to try to get back to business, and that's kind of an underlying of this whole conversation we have about travel expenses and other things. Things are ramping back up again. I would be a little cautious of saying open up these folks in just these 2 countries. You still see things in other parts of Asia that continue to develop as well. So, and in Taiwan, of course, has had a great relationship with Kansas, can be better. But I guess I would, almost like to give it to the discretion of Commerce. So just think about that as we look at this extremely focused motion. Thank you.
Representative Curtis.
I think all my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion? All right, seeing none. Oh, Representative Tarwater.
I tend to agree with the maker of this motion. We should have an office in Taiwan because they're one of our biggest trading partners. However, there will be an increased cost there, and so if this ends up going on, I'd like to hear from the Department of Commerce of what it would take to open that office and still maintain the Japanese relationship that they want to do.
Representative Corbett.
I agree with both Mason and Tarwater, but I hope this revised amendment doesn't say that Europe and some of the other countries that we need to have a presence or to partner with would be eliminated, if you know what I mean.
Representative Mason, do you want to add to that?
No, that's not the intention at all. The enhancement request specifically mentions the establishment of a Japanese office, and that was the intention, was to open a Japanese office and a Taiwanese office, not to detract from the other efforts.
Thank you.
Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The world continues to shrink, and I think our international relationships with other countries are imperative if we're going to go ahead and grow our economy here. I think to Western Kansas, I know in my community, it's a beef packing plant, but a large number of their sales are overseas to Korea, to Japan, possibly to Taiwan. I'm not aware. But I also think Europe is an important trading partner of the United States, and it's important for us to have a relationship there. So I guess my point is, I think we need to do more of this instead of less. And I'm inclined at this point to support the Department of Commerce's recommendation. We're kind of getting into some micromanagement here, I think. And I think we should definitely encourage the Department of Commerce to increase our outreach to Taiwan. I'm just not sure an office there is necessarily the best thing. My comment.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just go back to the language that's here. It talks about it, but then it says, continue to recruit additional foreign direct investment. I think that sentence says that they plan to reach out to different areas, and they're not saying it's only with Japan, additional foreign direct investment. And I think we should stay with what they have here, make them accountable, and get a full explanation of how we plan to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Corbett, or Chairman Corbett.
And the thing I was going to bring up was in the Budget Committee's recommendations to delete that $3 million for the returning Kansas home to Kansas marketing campaign. If you thought this international market needed more money, there's money there if you just want to redirect it. But it's hard to get everything done here. You want to do on $1 million or whatever. The Japan, Taiwan, wherever. The more places we go with the money you've got allocated here, you're not going to have much. I don't know. Just a comment.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the issue is that under what they're wanting to do, I think they're wanting to establish two commerce people in. There's no presence. They're not. It's going to be totally virtual. So they're actually not going to open up an office in Japan or Europe or anyway. It's totally virtual, and the 3 FTEs will be commerce my feeling on it is if they really want to have impact in Japan or Europe or wherever, they need to contract with someone who is over there, not create a new position, not send someone from here over there, contract with maybe someone who has another state. So that's my whole objective with adding the 3. Maybe we do need to put some money into it, but I don't think it needs to be a Department of Commerce employee. For us to get to really bang for the buck, we need to contract that with someone who's over there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion? Seeing none, Representative Mason, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the conversation, and this was my intent, was to get the conversation started and to plant this seed. Kansas at one time did have an office in Taipei, and there is an international trade center in Taipei. Many of our neighboring states have a presence there, an ongoing presence where they are promoting their state to businesses of Taiwan, including, I think, Nebraska has an office there. Who is not present there is the state of Kansas. So I would renew my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the substitute motion say aye. Opposed? No. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. The substitute motion fails. We're back on the original motion by Representative Owens. Any further discussion in regards to the original motion? Could we have the original motion repeated?
Yeah, the original motion was to delete the 3 FTEs and the funding and review it at omnibus.
Any further discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, Representative Owens, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, great conversation, things that we need to discuss. International business is incredibly important, but at the same time, we'll leave it to the will of this body, and I close on my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The noes appear to have it. Noes do have it. Division has been called. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. I counted 4 in favor and 17 against. Motion fails. I will say, when we get back from turnaround, we probably will invite the Department of Commerce to give us an extensive analysis of what this would actually do for the state of Kansas before we start putting the budget bill together. It's just right now we're trying to get through the budgets, but we will have that before we have the construction of the budget bill for fiscal year 23, 24, and 25. Representative Landwehr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to the issue of the 26.4 million SGF, and I believe what you're saying is that we don't have the ability to spend the ARPA funds, then my motion would be, instead of it being SGF, it would be Sparks.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Estes. Discussion on the motion? And is that just the 20 million for the rural housing? Or the entire 26?
Well, I was including the full 26.4, which would be the 6.3 and the 20.1.
Representative Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to get an answer to this, but I believe that we were told that we could not use Spark money for that. That's why it was SGF. So let me see if we can get the answer here.
If this motion would happen to pass and we have information later on, we can make changes to that. As everybody knows, nothing is ever finite in this committee until we actually pass a budget out. So if there's needs to be modifications made later, we can do that. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Spark funds are ARPA funds, I believe.
Right.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Landwehr, you may close.
Well, it appears, this may fail, and that's the way that it goes, but it's just, it amazes me that, in the omnibus bill that we were able to spend almost $62 million that did not pass out of this committee, did not pass out of the Senate committee, did not pass the Senate floor, nor did it pass the House floor. Appropriations, we have got to start getting more details and understand what we're working on. And this stuff, Mr. Chairman, has to stop. Because if we're going to take on the fiscal responsibilities of what's happening, we need to have detailed information. And we need to stop this BS that happened of, well, you can't spend this, you can't spend that because it's federal dollars and we've allocated different. We know that buckets of money have been put in different agencies, and we're still trying to get the information as to what those buckets are. We heard that a week ago in the CanCare Oversight Committee, $66 million sitting in KDADs, and they can't tell us exactly what it's for. So I close my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. We're back on the budget for the Department of Commerce fiscal year 2024. Representative Kincannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman Corbett, could you tell me what the conversation was about removing the Early Childhood Education and Care Initiative?
Chairman Corbett. Chairman Corbett.
Part of that they thought was for DCF money, and maybe the committee, maybe our committee thought there was enough money out there already.
Representative Kincannon.
I guess I'm okay. I just like more information on it, but.
Representative Helgerson.
My understanding that specifically was going to be used for helping out in business location. Am I mistaken?
Chairman Corbett.
That was probably the correct answer on that. Maybe new businesses coming, or it'd be like trying to using that. Maybe if a company was coming here and they needed some place or a place for childcare.
Representative Helgerson.
Well, I understand everybody's concerned and that there's other pots of money. I'll make a motion that that we review this item again in omnibus, since that's what we've been talking about, and see the need for, if there really is a need for $1 million worth of child care in order to get additional businesses located.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion seconded by Representative Woodard. We're on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Helgerson, you may close.
Close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're back on the budget. Representative Curtis.
Actually, I was going to chime in on, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to chime in on the child care issue. Could I just say something? I know it's for a future discussion, but my understanding is, and I asked this committee, I was on the Workforce Development Interim Committee, and I kept asking, last year we passed a child care tax credit, and I've asked, what are the examples, how many businesses have taken advantage of that? Which the answer was nobody could provide any. So my understanding is that this was Department of Commerce's attempt to help those businesses that are either expanding or locating in Kansas to think about child care on the front end and assist them in putting that in place, because we know that that is a huge barrier for people returning to work. So an example that they gave is that perhaps businesses locating, they want to provide childcare, they help make that connection. They don't want to run the childcare, because most businesses, they're like, that is not our business. We want to provide it, but we don't want to run it. So they help make those critical connections so that then it does provide childcare for their workers. And so just a little brief explanation on how that discussion went. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the budget? Representative Howe or Representative Woodard?
Very close to him. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question about the deletion of the Returning Kansas Home marketing campaign. I know that Nebraska is doing about $10 million in this sort of campaign work. Michigan's doing $10 million. Ohio's doing $50 million. In Kansas, we're very, very good at exporting our workforce, but we're not so great at importing it. So I'm wondering what the discussion was about deleting that.
Chairman Corbett.
I just think after what we heard in the committee, that the committee kind of felt that it could be used somewhere else, or some. I guess they couldn't explain to the committee the value of it, I guess.
Representative Woodard.
I mean, you're welcome to do whatever you want, but that's just.
Well, let's try our luck then. I would make a motion to review that item in omnibus as well and give the department an opportunity to give us more information to see where that goes.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion seconded by Representative Francis. Discussion on the motion. Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think about a line from a Broadway show, Who's Going to Tell Our Story? And, you know, I am a member of the Governor's Tourism and Travel Council, and we had a presentation on this as a part of that council. You know, when we talk about tourism and selling Kansas, it seemed like when they did their focus group, so much of that was trying to find out what would appeal to people to come back to Kansas, you know. And I remember one of my big talking points as I went through part of that focus group is we need to segment Kansas. In other words, what appeals to a person to live in my part of the world is not the same that appeals to a person in Topeka or Douglas County or Kansas City. And I think this program is part of that, marketing Kansas, and I think they feel like the low-hanging fruit is those that have already lived here, those that already have connections to Kansas. So it seemed like a good program. I don't know about $3 million. I did see that information that other states are spending $10 million for similar programs, but I'm supportive of this program, and I would like to have the committee have an opportunity to learn more about it to see if they feel the same. Thank you.
Chairman Corbett.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think that one of the thoughts that was in the committee was maybe not so much how you get them back, but maybe think of why they left in the first place. And you know, you're trying to catch a fish you've already caught once. It's tough to get them back on a stringer. So I think that could be spent somewhere else.
Representative Tarwater.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I first looked at this, my first thought was, how far can a $3 million advertising campaign go nationwide? And it just seems like our money and our time would be better focused on our students when more than half of them leave the state after graduation. We should be focusing on what we have right now and how to keep them, rather than a $3 million national ad campaign that may not ever be seen by any ex-Kansan. Thank you.
Representative Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding this is a study, not an advertising campaign. We have been discussing in our committee the need for a big advertising campaign, and that may come up yet. But this is a study of people who have left and how to get, and the consultants are in the process of interviewing people from all over the state to see what their experience is I appreciate the motion to look at it again at Omnibus and to let somebody else explain it. But, we did this in Manhattan several years ago, and we did a real emphasis on what we wanted to do with Manhattan. Who did we want to attract? Where were the gaps? What did we need to fill in? And that's what this kind of study would do. And we focused on retirees and football and sports and Kansas State University to bring people back to participate in their alumni events and with their university. But every community has strengths, and we're trying to find out what those strengths are to bring people back to those communities. And it's a study. It is not an advertising campaign. I'm pretty sure that's right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Woodard, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a marketing campaign to focus on getting folks back in. I know they are studying for the most effective way to roll that out, but it is a marketing campaign. Like I said earlier, Kansas is very good at exporting. Our workforce not as good as we should be for importing. So I'll renew my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Any further discussion on the budget for the Department of Commerce? Seeing none, Chairman Corbett.
I move that the budget recommendations for the Department of
Very thorough motion, Chairman Corbett. Seconded by Representative Carlin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. All right, committee, we are caught up for today. So until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, we are adjourned.